and YouTube, wherever you are and however you may be. Thank you for joining us today. Lots to get to on today's program. Eagles over the Rams. What a game. Bills over the Ravens. Can Lamar Jackson ever get over the hump? His playoff record is now 3-5. Ben Johnson will be the next head coach of the Bears. Aaron Glenn to the Jets, next head coach. Pete Carroll, new Raiders head coach, 3-year deal. The Cowboys still have no head coach. Is that job even really that good of a job? Bills fans donate $100,000 to Mark Andrews, his charity, after his crucial drop. His girlfriend had to deactivate her IG account due to death threats. We got to do better, fans. We have to do better. The Ohio State are your 2025 national champions. RG3 says it appears no structure of college football playoff format can prevent a championship game blowout. This is the seventh straight championship game blowout. Daniel Jones was sitting in Saquon Barkley's personal suite at Lincoln Financial Field, divisional round, alongside multiple Giants teammates, according to ESPN Jordan Renan. CC Sabathia, Galen, Hall of Famer. Ichiro, congrats to him as well. But one voter didn't vote for him, Ichiro, anonymous. So we don't know who that baseball writer is. It's interesting. Barca miraculous comeback versus Benfica in the Champions League a few days ago on Wednesday, 5-4. So congrats to Barcelona. Aaron Rodgers, he's coming back in 2025. And last Sunday, this guy's a gamer, uh, Matthew Stafford. Could be his final game versus the Eagles. What a game he had. Illustrious career. Stafford was amazing down the stretch. The season clearly has a lot of football left in him if he chooses to walk away from the game of football. He says he'll take some time to decide on his future. Jalen Hurts went 15 for 20, 128 yards. Josh Allen went 16 for 22, 127 yards. And oh, by the way, it's a little bit of snow on the ground in New Orleans there, Galen. Welcome back to the program. I know you're not feeling 100%, but every day is the Super Bowl. And yes, we're both wearing green. Me, Philly green, you, Celtic green. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you. And with that, I can honestly say, and please back me up because we were just talking about this. Yes, it wasn't planned. It just happened to work out that way. I'm wearing green. He's wearing green. It just, great minds think alike. What can you say?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, a lot of topics, man, right? I mean, which one of those topics stood out to you, surprised you the most in that rundown there?
A lot of topics for sure, per usual. It's what we do.
Right.
But something that's actually been on my mind, I almost couldn't help myself by sending you a text, but I figured that I save it for the airwaves. But can we, you know, start off talking a little Saquon, my man Barkley?
Yeah, for sure.
Because I feel like, we've mentioned him, rightfully so, pretty steadily, um, throughout the closing stretch there of the season,
Right.
right into obviously gearing up for the divisional round, playoff action.
Hmm.
Um, but we've been like rightfully mentioning him right in there with the QBs and stuff that's obviously pushing and fighting for you know uh, NFL MVP supremacy, and I feel like not to sell him short or anything because that's obviously not what you're gonna do. I mean, obviously that's your team. You love Barkley. I'm just a fan of his in general. Saquon Barkley, respect the heck out of his game when healthy, and just when we probably thought, as a very large Barkley following, fans throughout the country and stuff, that yeah, he's gonna be good. He may even be borderline great. But the question with him is, you know, can he stay healthy? Obviously he's been injured a little bit there in recent, seasons past and stuff. which is at the end of the day like taken away from his game and have led many to question, have we seen the best from him? Can he ever get back to, that peak, sort of prime you know, game of his, at least coming into the year and before he started doing what he was doing, basically on a week to week basis. I feel like the large consensus was that, like, they're getting a good player, but let's face it, he's on the back nine. He's not going to be able to reach those heights. Like it's going to be very tough. At this age and coming back and dealing with these recent injuries that he's been up against, but here we are. The regular season obviously has come and gone. He's been firmly entrenched into the MVP conversation virtually all season long. And I feel like if there's any, sort of playoff performances, which I don't think that that ever happens. I feel like, a lot of people have done made up their minds, and the votes I think
It's
might
already
need to
in.
be in.
It's already in.
That
Yeah,
they
it's
already
already in.
have to be in, like,
Right, right.
heading into the playoffs, right?
Hmm.
But if we were to extend it just into the playoffs, at least for the first couple of weeks, I mean, you probably can't do that because, for example, the likes of Burrow and stuff like that, they're not in the playoffs. So I get it. It's just from week one all the way straight through to the regular season. But if there was any sort of like grace period where, those players get maybe a little bit of consideration, that were in it for the regular season and still remain in it in the playoffs. But playoffs are not. But this divisional game, I feel like it basically now helps to validate the point that we've tried to make multiple times on the
Value,
show. And
value.
it's just like I'm just over, and I'm so sick and tired of just like it going and being almost like one of those awards that is exclusively and directly tied to the quarterback position. And let's face it, I mean, these guys are very like worthy themselves. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. But I feel like every so often there's that like great, like just
Silver
uh,
lining.
uh, uh, otherworldly, like sort of running back, incredible historic season. We've seen it this year from Barkley. We've seen it past years with Derrick Henry. We've seen it not this past year, but obviously the year before with Christian McCaffrey, Um and at times I feel like we've even seen it like, obviously at the wide receiver position, but I feel like more often than not it's coming that next position from the running back position. And I just feel like if there was any year, forget playoffs, but even like I feel like what he just did last week was
Yeah.
just proves it's icing on the cake. It's validated of what has been this whole season this past year for one Saquon Barkley. And it's just like his numbers like were stupid ridiculous week in and week out.
Yeah.
I feel like it was me, maybe you, but one of us said it just last week. I feel like he's good for at least a break, a big game break or two,
It's like a home run
virtually
hitter.
every game.
Home run
And what
hitter.
happened in the snow,
Yeah.
in just like, crazy, like,
78 yards.
just abnormal
Yeah.
conditions. If there was that one, weather-based game, snow accumulation, all that stuff, the cold, that you didn't really think that he can come close to doing just that and busting not just one but two breakaways and
Yeah.
just literally striking from anyways on the field, it would be that game. And this guy was just like snow proof. He
Yeah.
was just up there carving up the defense, doing what he does, like as if it was just a normal, fall sort of like winterish
Right.
um, type of temperature game, but with completely just grass and just no hindrance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in his way. And
It's
it was
crazy.
anything but. And he still went out and did what he did. And it's just like when I saw that and the conditions and all that stuff, and that he was like legit proven in this one game to be like snow proof, like winter, like extreme condition, like he just he doesn't care. He's still gonna
Yeah.
do him. He's still gonna go out and do what he does. I'm like, you know what? His season's beyond validated at this point. Um, Not only does he deserve to be in the conversation of MVP, but why can't we have that just one unorthodox sort of season that it goes to a running back, like otherworldly, a stud superstar,
Running
and
back.
just like, the game's best, running back, for that season. And not just amongst his peers, but he's even outperforming. Let's face it, Patrick Mahomes. He's right there putting up, crazy, you
Numbers.
know,
Yeah.
uh, uh very great and worthy numbers, just like a Josh Allen, a Lamar Jackson, and maybe to a lesser extent, well, not this year, but no, Joe Burrow too, because Joe Burrow had a phenomenal season.
He did.
Arguably, like I would have to say, is probably going to be his best thus far, career year. He was every bit as good of those three or four guys,
For
at the
sure.
quarterback position. But it's just like, and the other thing is too, is just like if there's that other position that clearly touches the ball, not as much as a quarterback, but hands down the next, you know, just as much, next in line, it is the running back because they touch the ball at least 15, 18, 20 plus times. A wide
It's
receiver
crazy.
almost is never, seeing that many targets. Tight ends certainly aren't seeing that many targets. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. I
And
mean,
I feel like the likes of Mahomes, like, let's face it, Mahomes, yeah, they had a great year, but like we said, how much of that has been tied to luck? If he's won, he hasn't like
or
popped.
referees calling
Yeah,
calls.
he
Yeah.
hasn't popped. He hasn't jumped off the page. You sent me a screenshot last week. Oh yeah, Jalen Hurts. Look at all this, but he outdid, Josh Allen by like a yard or two.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, very pedestrian numbers. And guess what? you know, just like they were having to go out there in the cold, in a lot of snow, more so Philly than it ended up being out in Buffalo, but certainly the whole like just challenges with the snow and the accumulation and the slipping all around the field and stuff like that. I mean, Barkley made it seem like none of that was a thing. You know what I mean? Where the
Yeah.
other
It's
two
unbelievable.
quarterbacks, it was just like I don't know if it was they had issues, or maybe it was just, just as much maybe the play calling, and they were, featuring the ground game in both games and stuff like that, and they basically by default took it out of the two quarterbacks' hands. I don't know what it was, but I do know Barkley was right there playing with Jalen Hurts. It's his quarterback. He was the other game, but not playing there in Buffalo. And it's just like Barkley's the one that looked like just the one
Yeah.
that was otherworldly. Burrow, yeah, he's not even in the playoffs. So it's just like, but when the dust settles or whatever, it just by default, because it's just it's the sexy pick, it's the expected, whatever, it's gonna go to one of these quarterbacks. And I just think that like if they just give me one season, and if the NFL was even remotely open to it, and they embrace change once in a while, don't you feel and really believe in your heart of hearts that like that one time that the tide gets flipped on us and now gets worthy and not only just consideration, but no, like see it through. Hey, we're gonna give it to Barkley. Hey, we're gonna give it to McCaffrey, not this past year, but the year before. Like these guys, they not every season, because I feel at the running back position, it's virtually impossible. It's not easily to replicate year over year, like at the quarterback position. But if you go like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, let's just say, before we see it again, fine. Like I get that. The time is you're not gonna expect to see that every single year. It's almost like impossible because number one, it takes some luck. You have to stay upright, you have to stay healthy. Sometimes they flip flop. One year it could be McCaffrey. This year was like clearly like the Saquon Barkley show. In past years, it's been Derrick Henry. So that's the thing. I feel like there's always going to be a couple of battling out for supremacy or whatever. But I feel like we I've been tempted. I'm sure you've been tempted to kind of like maybe share the whole acknowledgement and the actual anointing of NFL MVP with quarterback long before Barkley. But I just really feel like if there was that one year, I mean, he had rushing yards, receiving yards, a touchdown, all-purpose yards, the elusiveness, the weekly superstardom, like performance. I feel like there was no falling off from Barkley at any point. The absolute, quote unquote, game changing and game breaking ability. Some of these guys don't even have one in a season, let alone multiple.
Yeah.
And in the case of Barkley, I mean, he was way, way higher than that. He was like at, like I said, much of the season, it seemed like he was at one to sometimes two game breaks almost every single week. And that's just absolutely asinine in a good way. You
In
know
a
what I
good way.
mean?
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
incredible.
Yeah.
So I feel like, yeah, granted the voting comes and goes, it stops during the regular season. But just this past week, with what he had to deal with the weather conditions, the snow, the cold, all that stuff, it just further validates whatever. He shouldn't not only be firmly entrenched in the MVP conversation, he probably has been every bit as good and should get a lot more consideration that probably is going on and did go on to finally like them eventually making the call. I mean, he might get some votes, but I can firmly say this: it's number one, he's not going to get his due because he's not going to get nearly enough to probably look and see at the end of the day that he's going to be taken seriously. And number two, he not only should be getting the votes, but he should have been the one finally to break that trend and even usurp all the game's elite and sexy picks or whatever year in and year out between like the big four: Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Burrow.
See, yeah.
I honestly, if I had to say in the matter, this would be the year I give it to a quarterback. I mean, another
Running back.
position, and that would be running back, and it would be Saquon Barkley. Like I said, not to take anything away from McCaffrey or Derrick Henry, but I feel like he once again kind of like was every bit as good as those guys, but he was even more dynamic and more impressive because I feel like he just didn't do it for like a handful of games. He literally did it for like at least Kenford, maybe three quarters of the season. If not, it seemed like virtually the whole season. Because there was many, many moments when he literally single-handedly over Jalen Hurts, over any of those receivers, whatever, literally put that offense on his back, and he was able to literally just win them games. Not just last week, but we've seen it all
Winning
season
games.
long. Like
Yeah.
that's an MVP. That's an MVP in my eyes, and like it's just gonna be disgusting to see that they just continue to take the easy road out and just settle for once
Quarterback.
again just another one of these untouchable NFL darlings and like I said elite of the elite at the quarterback position. I don't think it's fair. These guys are always in the limelight. They're always just the face of the league or whatever. It's life. It's been changing technology or whatever all around us, day in and day out, year over year, whatever. Can we finally just one time? That's all I'm asking for. Can we finally see the same come full circle with the NFL and just kind of throw us a little bit of a bone and show us some sort of normalcy, that you guys aren't like hermits and just you're capable of change. They like to change like, oh, let's entertain 18 games and maybe a second bye week. They like to go abroad and play in other countries or whatever.
why can't the same sort of like openness apply when it comes to the MVP uh MVP conversation?
conversation.
I don't think it's right. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, I mean, I have to kind of agree with you as well too. Saquon is just built different. That run he had, the 78-yard run he had in the snow. Imagine being lined up on the wrong side of the play and still scampered for 78 yards. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, Saquon says, he's very happy. That's why he pretty much left the Giants. He's never been happier in Philly after that win. But yeah, I mean, every year is the quarterback, 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 quarterback. I mean, could we just do something different for once? I mean, what this guy has done in this team, because we're not getting the Jalen Hurts' best game every single time out there, right? And this guy's just been the lightning rod, the home run hitter, grand slam hitter, one or two times. You could bottle him up for most of the game, but at some point in time, he's going to scamper for 60 plus yards. He's done it about 5 times this season. First time ever ever happened in the NFL.
And that's what I'm saying. Like he's
Yeah,
literally
yeah,
made history at the
yeah.
running back position.
He did.
And what for just to get maybe a couple votes, maybe a few votes,
Right.
but at that juncture, he should be getting at least half, if not more.
Yeah,
And I just think
it's
it's
crazy.
just it's unfair. You know what
20,
I mean? It's
26
just
carries.
unfair.
Yeah,
He-
26 carries, 205 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, the most rushing yards in a playoff game by an Eagle ever.
yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's crazy. What are you thinking, Gail? What does Giants fans think? What do Giant fans think? I mean, they had Cowboy fans as well too, right? They had Kellen Moore, let him go. They had Dan Quinn, let him go. Saquon, let him go. All these guys are now in the NFC title game with the Eagles and the Commanders. What are you thinking if you're Giant fans and Cowboy fans, Galen, to see guys you had on your roster are now shining in one of the next biggest game in the NFL? I mean, you got to be scratching your head if you're a Cowboy fan, if you're a Giant fan, right? But letting these guys go.
Well, I think it's simple. I mean, they got to be saying short and sweet. Why not us? That
Yeah.
should have been us. But I'll tell you why it's not either one of those franchises. It's just in the case of the Giants, they let's face it. I mean, they don't have the supporting cast, and that's a big part of what Barkley has been able to benefit from this year. I mean, it's quite obvious. If he had even at all any sort of semblance of what he has there in Philly, then yeah, they probably wouldn't be so quick to just part ways and just not entertaining, bringing back his services.
Right.
And then of course, if he, stays there, I mean, it's not like I said, I said what I said about him right off the top regarding Barkley, like this is some sort of fluke season. No, like Barkley is really that dude. And when he's healthy, even back to his Giants days, dating back to his Giants days, he's pretty much always been that guy.
Yeah.
Maybe not to this level because this is very historic type territory, but I mean, he's one of the most prolific and just true game changing, type of talents, overall talents
We've
at the
ever
running
seen.
back position in the
Yeah.
whole league.
Yep.
But like I said, there has been, unfortunately, a couple to a few seasons there where he's had to kind of fight through and just overcome injuries, and even when he is kind of like trying to push through like it's kind of taken away obviously from his game, which have led many including myself to wonder if he could ever just be that guy again, that he did show about 3-4 seasons ago.
I think this is the best
And
version of Saquon we've seen,
yeah,
right?
that's
This is
what
the
I'm
best
saying.
version.
Like
Yeah.
we thought that was the best version, and he wouldn't be able. But what he's been able to do in Philly this year,
Without
even
Yeah,
usurps, all
what
of
he's
his
done.
past
6 seasons
consistent,
with the Giants. Yeah.
seasons there much early on in his career as a member of the Giants. So it's just
Yeah.
like, wow. I mean, that's why I'm so like banging that drum to like,
Yeah.
no, this is really
Give
your
him the
your
award.
NFL
Give him the
MVP
award.
right
Yeah.
here. I
Yeah.
mean, just when we thought that we couldn't even remotely think that there was another level or two to
Right.
his game, he proved all of us wrong, me
Yeah.
included. I'm sure you included. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I
I
mean? Like,
yeah.
how is that not deserving of just quote unquote true defiant, like, yeah, he's this year's NFL MVP. You know what I mean? And like I said, these guys may only get like one legit like crack at the can where, let's face it, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, they're like kind of like just each other's coin flip. They're just
It can go either way, any given time.
they're
Yeah.
just literally like, one vote. It seems like year in and year out, like it could be any of those top 4 at any time, like
Yep.
a little kind of vote here, a little vote there. I just feel like they're all pretty much in the conversation of each other. And like I said, there might be like a running back also factoring in every year, but what are they getting? Maybe 1 or 2 votes,
Yeah.
maybe a handful if they're lucky,
It's crazy.
So yeah, I mean, if you're the Giants, if you're the Cowboys, you got to be saying like early and often, why not us? But with the Giants, I don't think they're a complete walk-in mess from a front office standpoint, ownership. Always having they insist on having their hand in the cookie jar. I think it's more personnel based with them that unfortunately didn't really get to see Barkley at his absolute true best,
Right.
like we're seeing down in Philly, and I feel down in Big D, it's just been more stubbornness and just like reluctantness just to kind of trust the process and just like, if you're Jerry, you got to know where I'm going with this.
Yep.
Yep, I'm going to give the keys to the kingdom to you. I'm going to fall back.
He
My
won't.
time has come and gone. I'll just let you do what you need to do. You can take all the credit or whatever, even though I'm just nutty about like always trying to remain in the spotlight, steal the
Yeah.
spotlight and stuff
He
like
won't
that.
change.
I just feel like, with Jerry unfortunately is holding what should be
The
one
Cowboys
of
back.
the all-time
Yeah.
past and still should be present great franchises. He's just unfortunately holding them back, by just being in the way.
Handcuffed.
He
Being in
just
the way. Yep.
always
Stubborn
needs he
to be in
always
the
needs to
spotlight.
have some sort of say, final say, taking part in the decision.
Yep.
And I'm not even saying that he's been bad for business because let's face it, I mean, compared to my Patriots, I mean, some of their drafts have just been much, much better, light years better than my Patriots.
Right.
So they have made some good calls along the way, but you look at that roster, that's not a terrible roster. They usually have, more than enough to compete, and just um, get to where everybody would at least expect them to. Like, should be like annually, a playoff type team. But you look at it, it's obviously, a lot more than just personnel because the
Yeah.
personnel is you can find much worse around the NFL. So if it's not the personnel, both offensively and defensively, there's obviously some sort of disconnect, with the coaching, with the maybe the philosophy, both offensive and defensively. Maybe it's just just a little uneasiness or just walking on eggshells because like I said, we know how Jerry is and how he just likes to police everything. I don't know, it could be a variety of things, but I do know this. I think at the end of the day, it almost always unfortunately seems to point back at ownership,
Yeah.
Jerry.
Saquon Barkley says wins like today are the exact reasons why he came to Philadelphia and signed with the Eagles. But Galen, I was watching that game and my anxiety was through the roof on that game on Sunday. I mean, from Hurts holding on to the football way too long, not getting rid of the football, taking a safety. Like the run game was great at points a certain time. He had a big run. It was great. But then like Matthew Stafford, I've got a lot of respect for Matthew Stafford. That guy is a gamer. Nakua is a gamer. But hats off to Howie Roseman, man. His draft class. I mean, Jalen Carter, beast, wrecked the game. Two forced fumbles, 10 pressures, five hurries, three sacks, three tackles for loss. I mean, big game. Also, Nolan Smith in two playoff games this year, 12 tackles, three sacks, three tackles for loss, one forced fumble. Both guys were huge game wreckers, man, on that game on Sunday. And also, Josh Elliott. I mean, 3 for 3 on field goals that day. I mean, with those conditions, Galen, you have the guys have to like clean the ground so they, move the snow so you can kick the field goal in the snowy weather. But I'm telling you, Galen, I was on edge the entire time. I love watching football, but when it comes to when the games get tight, like it was on Sunday, I mean, the Rams had a chance to win this game, Galen, with the last play. It came down to the last play. If it wasn't for Saquon with those huge runs, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Jake Elliott making those clutch plays. I mean, Jalen Hurts only had 128 yards, Galen. Didn't throw the ball that well. And I've read an interesting stat. I think I sent it over to you today. If he throws more than 250 yards, we lose 0-3 in the playoffs. Less than 250 yards, we're 4-0. So it's like the KISS version, right? The mathematic KISS version. Keep it simple, stupid. Less is more. Just hang around a little bit, play good defense. Great defense, not good, but great defense. Bend, don't break. And we're gonna have a chance here. I don't want to see Jalen Hurts scoring 300 yards because that's not a recipe for winning. That's not his style. That's not his game. It seems like this season in the playoffs as well. Like the numbers don't lie, right? But Galen, I'm watching that game Sunday. It was tough, man. I'm texting Chris. I'm texting Jeremy, my Eagle faithful out there. Shout out to both of them. But Galen, I was on pins and needles, man. I couldn't. I didn't drink. I didn't drink to ruin
I was
that
about to
game.
say that
After
drink
the
didn't calm you
game,
down.
after the game, I had a coquito or two. After the game, to calm my nerves down watching the Bills and Ravens. But Galen, that game should never been that close. I mean, we were up what over 10 points, and here comes the big bad Rams. I mean, hurry up offense kind of got them back into the game. And we punted the ball, and they got the ball back. And Nakua made a heck of a catch, 40-yard catch. I didn't see that coming. I mean, Quinion Mitchell was out, shoulder injury. He'll be playing on Sunday, though. He says he's good. He's good to play. He's good to go. But Galen, that game was too close to call, and it came down to the last play. What say you with those guys? How they came up, how they showed out that game. The defense played great, but hats off to Matthew Stafford and the Rams. Sean McVay, man, heck of a coach. Heck of a coach. Are you a big believer of McVay over Campbell? What say you, GC?
Yeah, I've been a McVay, advocate. I'm a huge fan. I mean, he just seems to always get the absolute best out of his roster. Um, there's almost never really, much luck. I feel, it really is just an art with him. It is it's very enjoyable to watch him just be able to
All business.
navigate.
All
Yeah, just
business.
navigate right there on the sidelines, and just he just seems to always push the right buttons. And like I said, we're not just talking about a season or two. I feel like it's been
Consistent
virtually his whole
tenure.
coaching career,
Yeah.
as head coach. Been very consistent. You almost never hear him um at odds, any sort of friction in the building or anything like that, him being on the hot seat. And again, he's got his teams well prepared, well conditioned,
Ready to go.
ready to
Yeah.
go. Basically, right there, playoff S type, caliber roster, year in and year out. It doesn't get too much better than McVay. And then, of course, there's a consistency, and there's the whole, as we all know, he's been pretty much the leader of the pack in terms of, you know, the whole air raid and modernizing of the current offense, that has been picking up steam now for a while, over recent seasons and stuff. I mean, it basically has begun, uh almost always, with
a direct sort of
Got to give him
tie-in
credit.
and
Yeah.
linkage
Yeah.
right back to McVay. All
Hmm.
McVay, the McVay tree. So we've been here. We're going to continue to hear that. And I feel like at the end of the day, yeah, that speaks, and it should, it speaks
Volumes.
volumes
Yeah.
with him as a coach, and the sort of impact that he's had with his assistants, not just there, they're currently on the team, but even those that have moved on, and gone their separate ways and taken promotions elsewhere. So McVay, you see some sort of McVay stamp slash extension
Yeah.
almost everywhere throughout the league,
Good
and
coach, man.
that is just really special,
Yeah,
just
for
to
sure.
think about and appreciate really at the end of the day, because yeah, we hear a lot about like Bill Belichick and stuff like that, but I feel like when all said and done, he's gonna be high up there, regarded amongst his peers, and he's probably gonna go down as an all timer for sure. Um, but yeah, I'm with you. I watched that game, and looking at that game, I can honestly say if it wasn't for Barkley, and especially coming down the stretch,
Yeah.
but they were pretty consistent throughout too. But they definitely raised the bar and took their game to another level. On the defensive side, and most
Carter and
notably
Smith. Yeah.
the front seven, Jalen Carter. I mean, they were a force. They were absolute. One. You know,
Game
one.
wreckers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were absolute
Unbelievable.
game wreckers, and they were just they weren't gonna be denied. They
Sort of
they weren't
remind me
gonna
like Aaron Donald,
they
right?
weren't
Like a little bit
yep.
like little Aaron
Yeah,
Donald and Jalen
they
Carter.
weren't gonna be stopped, and you could see LA, they a- they had absolutely their hands full.
Full. Yeah.
I feel like, as much as they were trying to not have him be like the difference in terms of disruption and all that stuff,
Yeah.
he just willed himself, just to continue to wreak havoc, get into the backfield and doing what we all know that he can do, from a skill set standpoint. I mean, you look back when he was drafted, he was obviously highly regarded, came with some question marks and stuff like that in terms of his character and stuff, off the field,
Right.
which may have hurt him a little bit on draft day. But it seems like, since he's been in the league, he's basically kind of kept that under wraps, and he's kind of figured things out, and he's shown that maturation, that maturity, and all that, which now has once again, played a huge factor in his growth, both on and off the field.
Yep.
And we've continued to see, and continue to see, um, we will, just the best version of himself, because same thing, like we've said about Barkley, I just feel like we've seen some high marks, and just this last week was the latest. But I don't think we've seen just the his climax. I don't think we've seen his peak. I fully expect for him to continue to have quite the impact there, on the defensive line, and just continue to raise the bar. And yeah, that guy's he's scary, and
Scary for sure.
he can definitely, just be a big part, of winning a game, and helping to do that on the defensive side. And I think this past week was just an example
Yeah.
of both, what he's capable in the here, and sign of things to come moving forward. And I think for it, it's guys like him, it's guys like Barkley that, you can't be sleeping on Philly. You know what I mean? You have to take them serious, and they're capable of just, finishing the job.
Yeah.
I feel like at the end of the day, it probably comes down to obviously health. Almost always does. Like you said, maybe if that is, looks like the what's been the recipe, um, of recent, of just offense, keeping it, would you say, keeping it simple, stupid.
Yeah. Kiss. Yeah. Yeah.
Can continue to swear by Barkley, feature him pretty heavily in the offense, dub it down. I don't like using this phrase, but almost like kind of managing the game a little bit because I feel like
Game manager.
Hertz is more than a game manager,
Yeah.
but I just feel like, sometimes, yeah, like you say, less is more. And he's got, the receivers. He has a really good tight end and Goddard. But if that's what's working, then stay with what's working.
Yeah, for sure.
There's nothing wrong with that because, let's face it, most teams don't have a Saquon
If
Barkley.
it's not broken, don't fix it. Yeah.
That just doesn't exist.
Right.
So if it's handoff after handoff or these little dump passes, catching him in the flat, and you're scoring points that way, cool, awesome, stick with it. But guess what? That and this emerging defense week over week, I'm seeing championship
Yeah.
type of legit possibility. I,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people say whoever expects to come out the AFC, after this weekend's AFC title
I
game,
see Cam Newton's comments. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
you, you,
Yeah.
you know, I feel
His
like a
opinion.
lot of a lot of people probably aren't giving really anyone to come out of the NFC much of
Yeah.
a chance,
Right.
and I guess like I can see why, but at least with Philly, I think you got to
Defense,
pump the
man.
brakes there because they are just like we were saying about the Rams,
Right.
really like having that lady luck and kind of destined feel, whatever. Well, now just that has been probably passed on all in the same game. And now you can honestly say that about Philly. I
Yeah.
feel like now Philly, even though Washington has been great, you know what I mean, and really surprised a lot of people and goods to them. But I just feel like, damn, with this team, they're literally clicking on all cylinders. They're home. Um, yeah, what's not to like
Yeah.
about Philly?
Seriously. Yeah.
You got to watch out, and I think that they can definitely um hang with Buffalo if Buffalo comes out, and I know for a fact they can definitely run and continue running right past KC.
Yeah.
The only thing that we gotta be leery of course, is we keep on saying it, and then last week happened, is the refs. You can never, rule those knuckleheads out from trying to do their best to kind of like continue to keep Mahomes afloat in that offense. But yeah, I mean, Philly, man, wow.
Speaking of
Uh,
the refs, Galen, they told Saquon Barkley, he said the refs pulled him aside in the middle of the game and told him to stop talking trash to the other team. I mean, what are we really doing here, right? No fun league.
Again, it's a no fun league.
I mean,
I
really,
mean, why do I have to continue
really,
to remind you of this? It's the no fun league. It's been the no fun league
it's terrible,
for far too long. And
terrible.
I don't see them kind of like switching things up and reversing course and changing their ways. I just don't see it.
Do better,
It's
NFL. Do
it's
better.
almost like
Do better.
they enjoy. They really just
No one's coming to play to see the zebras. We're not paying. Us fans
I
aren't paying to see
I
the
I
zebras. We're
get it.
not.
I get it. But they're just so gun ho, and they have no shame in their game of just
I mean,
being the ultimate sort of policeman
yeah.
for one Roger Goodell in the NFL. Like they're just okay. If that's what you say we are, the no
Yeah.
fun league, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Continue to watch us go to work and enjoy doing what we do.
It's
They
crazy.
they have no shame in their game.
None.
That's what it
No,
is.
no
No
shame.
fun league.
Rich Eisen calls Barkley nightmare fuel. I like that line. Nightmare fuel, Rich
I
Eisen.
like
Shout
that.
out to Richie Rich. Nick Sirianni Galen has the most wins in the first 4 seasons with 52. Others, Matt LaFleur, Jim, and John Harbaugh at 49. Very solid company for Nick Sirianni. Devontae Smith, the Eagles' all-time postseason receiving yards leader. Most consecutive playoff games without an interception in NFL history. Pat Mahomes at 6, Jalen Hurts at 6. Mahomes has a lot of touchdowns, a lot of yards. So does Jalen Hurts. I mean, it can break it down to you: 1,556 yards, 11 touchdowns, no picks. Jalen Hurts, 1,342 yards and 12 touchdowns, both with no picks. Quinion Mitchell is believed to not be seriously hurt. Minor shoulder injury. He's going to be playing the game on Sunday, and he's most likely going to be on wide receiver out there, McLaurin, for the Commanders. But Galen, I tell you, man, once your team's in the playoffs and you're like looking at the game, it's a different feel, man. It really is a different feel. We we can't we got to start fast, Galen. This game we have to start fast. Then never take our foot off the gas. Keep going, pedal to the metal. Play a clean game, no turnovers, no picks, no taking all these crazy sacks, and just get rid of the football, Jalen. Don't hold on to the football. Please get rid of the football. Throw it away. Throw it away. Throw it away. We got to start fast. We got to start quick because Commanders are for real. They're gonna have, they're coming out here. No one expects them to be here. They're playing with house money. I mean, this is a great season for them. No one's expected them to be in this position right now and a chance to play for the Super Bowl, mind you. So they're going to bring it. And I know they're going to go for it on 4th and 3, 4th and 4. They're going to go for it. They're going to take chances. Like we said, they have nothing better to lose, more so than the Eagles. But the Eagles, home court, home field advantage, locked in. Guys are ready to go. But I see this one coming down. I don't want to say it's going to come down to the wire. I don't want to go through that ever again. Um, but obviously, I'm leaning towards my Eagles winning this game, but they just can't make it close. Don't make it close. Start off fast and early, get a lead, and have the rookie come down to earth. What say you, Galen?
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, you take that potential recipe, um, of getting to that point. I feel like if and when they're able to kind of get a quick, sort of lead right out the gate, get off to that fast start like you're mentioning. Um, well, from there, guess what? You have the goods, you have the personnel to
Yeah,
continue to keep that gas, you put that pedal to the metal and just continue to just push it full steam ahead, continue to run with it, literally and figuratively. But I feel like sometimes where these teams and coaching staffs get into a little bit of a
pickle.
pinch is
Yep, yep.
because they just insist on, going the whole air raid and trying to be all sexy and trying to
Yeah,
do too much,
doesn't
whatever.
work in the playoffs.
And again, not to say or discredit in any sort of way Jalen Hurts' game, but let's face it. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say he's not a Patrick Mahomes. He's not a Lamar Jackson. He's not in that whole, upper echelon,
That
true
realm, that
elite.
scope. Yep.
Yeah, that true elite at the quarterback position, like Josh Allen, like Joe Burrow, um, those big dogs. He's not them, but he's certainly not like down, at the bottom neither with like the Deshaun Watsons and
Yeah,
all,
bottom
all,
tiers.
all, all, all these guys making up like the 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 scrums of the league. He's probably like I said just last show. He's probably in that next tier down from the big four. That's not bad at all. I'm not taking a shot at him. But let's face it, he is a very good quarterback, and at times he can pop and kind of be teetering like elite status himself. I just feel like I don't know if it's confidence. I don't know if it has a little bit to do because clearly he seems to be, um, you know, dealing with something. That there's definitely something there physically with him. He's not right. He's certainly not 100%. I mean, not too many people are this late in the year,
Yeah,
but I feel
everyone's
like it's
banged up
starting to
now.
show more and more in his play in recent weeks. So he's certainly banged up. So I feel like for that reason alone, I would probably take that much off his plate and only kind of just insist on giving him whatever he's able to handle and tolerate, mainly from a physical standpoint. But
Real
like
quick,
I said,
Galen.
you still have the horses, you still have the guns,
Right.
and arguably your biggest playmaker at go figure a non-quarterback position in one Saquon Barkley. So as long as you have him lining up right behind you in the backfield, then if you're the Eagles, I feel like this is an easy call. You have the better personnel between these two teams offensively. I mean, yeah, you probably given the edge. Let's face it, probably to Jaden Daniels in this game. But everything else, receivers, advantage Philly. Running back, obviously advantage Philly.
O line.
O line, advantage Philly. Maybe head coach, probably a coin flip. But everything for the most part, the majority of the boxes, Philly's checking off. So I mean, don't insist on forcing the issue, especially for health purposes. If he's not right, only just insist on giving him what he's able to kind of do and tolerate with throughout the game, and then the rest, I feel, just continue to feed Barkley. And as we've seen time and time again, him, Derrick Henry, the more you feed these guys, the more comfortable they're gonna get. Um, the more confidence that they're gonna have, um, gaining steam, picking up throughout the game. And these guys eventually are gonna they're gonna wear out the defense, just by continuing to just literally running them into the ground, and eventually they're gonna soften it up to a point where they're gonna be exposed and they're gonna break that long run, or sometimes two, fall into the end zone a couple times, and then with that, the game should be over. The game
Yeah.
should definitely be well in hand, and especially if they're able to, like I said, you know, stick to that whole kiss method, keep it simple,
Simple,
stupid,
stupid.
and then what? Now we can just basically hand it over to the defense, which
Let
has
them
been
do the
wreaking
rest.
havoc and
Yeah.
has really been having a field day. And for themselves, they've been playing next level, like otherworldly, and just been their own semblance of what Barkley has been through and through all season offensively. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? You got those game changers. You have those freaks of nature that are just true home wreckers. Let them go ahead and just tee off and just feast away on that offensive line for Washington,
Right.
and make the rookie there finally just feels some sort of like,
Come down to
okay,
earth.
not knock him off his perch, bring
Yeah.
him back down to earth or whatever. you know don't make him feel comfortable
Get
back
comfortable
there.
back there. Right.
you you,
Right.
you know
Yeah.
you have to kind of
Make him
make him just
uncomfortable.
like feel unsure of himself, lose a little confidence, like like you have to really just let out the hounds, and just really see what he's made of. Because I feel like at this point, and seeing what he just did last week, which was, like I said, damn impressive. He's coming in feeling it. He's feeling good. He's got that, sky high confidence. But there's one way, and one way only, to kind of like just get him out of that wrong. It's just like you have to bring it. You have to blitz him. You have to show him different looks.
Yep. Disguise him.
And
I think
and and
Fangio will
and
do a good
and
job of that for sure.
and you just have to kind of,
Confuse him.
within reason, because of these refs, you have to kind of like knock them around or whatever, but
Yeah.
don't push the envelope, of course, because there's always that flag that's going to be waiting for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just have to find some way somehow to get to him, and get to him early and often.
Yeah, I mean, couple plays happened in that game, Gail. I'm looking at it. I'm waiting for the flag. Those couple of hits in Jalen Hurts. He got bent back like an accordion. He got shoved out of bounds. No call. I'm like, if this was Pat Mahomes, it's like a 15-yard penalty. No call. I'm like, the referees are standing right there. Jalen got bent backwards. His knee was like in the ground. And like, I'm like waiting for the call. I'm like, he's looking at the ref like the ref's like, nope, play on. I'm like, this is Pat Mahomes, Galen. I mean, that's a flag. I mean, am I right? Am I wrong? Am I crazy here? What did I miss?
Well, no, you're not. And like I said, some of it has to do with play, just being like, you know, a
Yeah,
bit off from the big four,
yeah,
just sometimes I feel like he shows signs of it, but he's not nearly as prolific. He's not as consistent. So again, that's why I feel like, I drop him down a tier. But then the other aspect is, you can tell he's not in that same sort of appreciation, that same sort
yeah.
of like, realm and circle of the other quarterbacks,
Right.
because those other quarterbacks get pretty much that on a game to game
All the
basis.
calls. Yeah,
But where
yep.
it seems like he should be entitled to that same sort of like diva-ish sort of treatment and hierarchy or whatever. Then you have hits and plays that, do and end up, you would think, going his way,
Yeah,
only for the referees just to put their flags away and swallow their whistles
yeah,
and stuff like that. So yeah, unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, some of it is just the overall uh, game flow and the production on the field. But then there's that other factor. Is just like, he also gets held down because the league is telling you, well, he's not them. He will never be
yeah.
them. We
It's
don't view
crazy.
him as them. So like,
It's crazy to me.
okay, you
Crazy.
guys want, us to make these calls or not make these calls because, sometimes we're too influencing the game too much. I feel like in an unfair sort of way, if it makes any sense. I feel like they also sometimes kind of go out their way to now conveniently just not make these calls with
Yeah.
those that they don't really value and they don't
The obvious
perceive
ones
in the
they don't
same
call.
light,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's what you're
yeah,
seeing.
yeah.
I feel
It's
like
crazy.
Jalen Hurts, it's and guys, quarterbacks like him, it's the prototypical, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't,
Yeah, it's crazy.
but yeah, you're right. If it was Josh Allen, if it was Patrick Mahomes,
Yeah.
oh, 10 out of
Laundry,
10.
laundry everywhere.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, yeah,
They getting those calls
of
all day,
course.
every day.
It's crazy.
God forbid you blow on these guys.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Jalen Hurts, oh no, you can actually put your hands on them,
You
twist
can hit
them
him.
all
Yeah,
around,
yeah, like a
bend them
pretzel.
backwards or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Oh, we didn't see anything.
yeah,
Convenient,
yeah.
convenient. It's not a fair playing field, and it's been like this unfortunately for a while.
Yeah, seriously. Sean Hockley, son of Ed Hockley's refereeing the Eagle Commander game on Sunday. Eagles are undefeated with Hockley refereeing the game 6-0 with Nick Sirianni as head coach. Um, with Sean Hockley at the helm there. Commanders, good team. No one expected them to be here, but general manager Adam Peters has been in 5 of the last 6 NFC championship games. Peters was the assistant GM in San Francisco. Before that, won 3 Super Bowls with the Patriots and Broncos. Adam Peters wins everywhere he goes, it seems like. Jaden Daniels is the 6th rookie in NFL history to play in a championship game. Just remarkable, remarkable. So the stage is set. Eagles, Commanders this Sunday at 3 p.m. on Fox. Burkhardt and Tom Brady calling the game on Sunday. Eagles at home are favored by 6.5 points. Galen, you got a score prediction, not a spoiler alert, but a prediction for Sunday.
I will say I'll go 24 24-14.
24-14. I like that. Eagles?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
sorry. Eagles.
Eagles.
Yep.
Okay, okay. Got to make sure here, you know. It's like
Yeah.
the
I'm on
millionaire,
board.
the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, right?
I'm
Final
I'm
answer.
I'm I'm on board. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Yeah. I mean, the Eagles, we beat them the first game we played them this year, and then the second game they won. Jalen Hurts was knocked out of the game with a concussion in the first quarter there. So, you know, I could see that um, playing out a certain style this Sunday. I could see the Eagles winning this game. Score prediction, not a spoiler. I'll go 30-17 Eagles. 30-17 Eagles. I just don't see the Eagles losing this game, Galen. I mean,
So we're not
the,
that far off for
we're
that
not that far
prediction.
off. I mean, if you're the Commanders, Galen, no one expected you to be this far. This is a winning season, right, for you guys. This is a remarkable, remarkable feat if you're the
Oh yeah.
Commanders, right?
Yeah, there's no way, no how. I mean, people are gonna end up now, being down on them. They're not in any danger at all of being bashed or to be criticized because, like you just said, there's just no way they should have been here,
Yeah,
and
no way.
probably like many, just not even realizing what was yet to come from Barkley, which was um, just this much into his NFL tenure, this year would be his career year, not some of like the early Giant years. Well, same thing with Washington. I mean, you, there was a lot of retooling this past off season. Obviously, they went into the season with their rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels, number 2 overall. But there was still there was still work to be done. There was probably a bit too much to ask from the rookie, and all these new additions that they ended up signing on and bringing on board last off season. It was probably just a bit too much. You probably see a bump up, but I don't think many was over here expecting, predicting. Oh, now they've arrived. They're gonna make it to the playoffs, and when they do, they're probably gonna surprise some people. They're gonna make some noise. No, I mean, I didn't expect them to get there, and the fact that they were able to, you know, have a really good season and get into the playoffs and earn their way there, and then when you get there they still continue to impress you and they win some more. I mean, you can make a valid argument. Probably this is going to be it for them. But if so, not only did they exceed, I mean, not only did they excel, but they exceeded that,
Expectations for sure,
and
for
they
sure.
and they really performed above and beyond. So with that, there should be no hanging of the head or anything like that. There shouldn't be um anything negative at all. If anything, it should be the complete opposite. Win or lose this Sunday, the future no doubtably is bright, because I feel like if there's that one thing that this season is telling us, is already they haven't, I wouldn't say arrived. I wouldn't go that far,
Right.
but they seem to be well on their way. And if this season is a sign of things to come, they're only doing this. They're only scratching the surface.
Surface, yeah.
They're only going to continue
Only gonna
to
get
add on
better.
to that.
Add more pieces.
Their young quarterback is only
Yeah,
going to continue to mature and grow into the leader, both on and off the field. Continue to be that guy, make plays. Now, what they need to do is just continue to fill in the pieces around him, just to be able to sustain that. And like I said, if you're a part of that fan base and a big advocate for that team, you gotta like the future prospects of this team and where they're headed.
for sure. Real quick, your take on Ben Johnson to the Bears, Aaron Glenn to the Jets, Pete Carroll now to the Raiders. You like those hires? Those three hires? You're a big fan of those hires? Could he? He's got a lot of this. These guys have a lot of work to do, right, Galen? Historic franchises, obviously. But Ben's got a lot of work to do. Aaron Glenn's got a lot of work to do, and the Raiders. These guys, all three teams, have a lot of work to do going forward. Are you high on these head coaches, these signings, these and the Cowboys, and the Cowboys? Nobody, they have no coach. They have no coach. Galen, is this a job? America's team, right? Is this a job that I wouldn't even want? You wouldn't even want to coach the Cowboys. You were taking those hires, and the Cowboys still with no head coach.
Well, it's probably more lacking in experience. Been there, done that. The only one, obviously, that was mentioned of those three that's not only been there before but has excelled and has had a lot of success in this league is Pete Carroll. I mean, obviously, the
Super Bowl
jury's out.
winner. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the jury's out on Ben Johnson until he gets out there and just starts to really make sense and put his stamp on things, and hopefully he's every bit what we saw for his time there down in Detroit. Great offensive coordinator, great offensive mind. Hopefully, he's able to mold that into now his next role as head coach for the Chicago Bears, and he's able to put the pieces around him to help alleviate a lot of the pressure, a lot of the responsibilities. So hopefully, it doesn't take too much away from what he does best and his bread and butter in
hmm
terms of being a play caller and stuff like that, and really getting the most, maximizing that offense. But like we've seen multiple times over from, key, wildly successful coordinators, um, for a lot of years here in New England, a la Josh McDaniels, now back again
Yeah,
as the,
it's like a lifer,
as the latest offensive coordinator.
right?
This is his third, fourth rodeo now. Um, yeah, sometimes, these guys, they build up a lot of momentum. They have a lot of, consistent, sustained success with their teams. And then, they get their opportunity to shine elsewhere as head coaches. And as we see, like, again, there's probably no better example than Josh McDaniels. I'm not picking on him, but he's flamed out not once, but twice. So we
How many more
can't
chances could he
we
really
we
have,
we
right? We've seen the
probably
sample
none,
size already. Yeah,
probably none at this
at
point,
this point,
and
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't blame anyone for not going anywhere near him moving forward. But we can't just automatically link that to like a Ben Johnson, because for all we know, he could just hit the ground running and be that rare unicorn, you know.
yeah.
So I'm intrigued. I like his mind. I like, his play calling ability. I mean, he's just no fluke. He's no flash in the pan. I mean, he's been now a beast. He's been that dude for the last few seasons down in Detroit, and he's, legitimately and very worthy of this opportunity. He's getting his chance to take his wildly successful self to Chicago. Um, but like I said, it's just going to be important that he's going to have that supporting cast to give him the best chance to flourish and thrive as a new head coach in this league. And I think the only thing to be mindful of that, people continue to like bring up and speak about is that he's not really quote unquote that prototypical and expected alpha that you would want to see, and that a lot of times you do have in these head coaches. I feel like, that's just part of the job, right? Being a leader of men, from what I'm hearing, and obviously I don't know him personally, but I do trust the reporting that's out there, is that he's a little bit of an introvert, to say the least. He's kind of to himself, and he's kind of like just off in his like, in his box or in his office, like doing what he does, like just that mastermind, just really
Yeah,
just
calling
coming up
plays.
with a
Yeah,
great
schemes,
sort of,
game plan.
game plan.
Yeah,
Well, guess what? Now as a head coach, that's a part of the job, but that's not everything,
you got to
And I
motivate
feel
men.
like,
Men, you got to
yeah, and I
motivate them.
feel
Yeah,
like if that kind of quiet, sort of very reserved sort of approach um is a serious question mark with him now trying his luck as a head coach and being hired to lead the Bears, and hopefully again in utmost succession, which I don't rule out. I just feel like that's definitely, a part of his makeup that now he's going to have to work on, and work on quite noticeably, because I feel like, even though I've never been in position to be a head coach and won't ever be, but I'd like to think that being a leader of men, having that sort of some sort of alpha type of tendency, as
yeah.
part of one's makeup, you got to think that that's a big part at the end of the day to a lot of these guys simply either succeeding, in their future endeavors as head coach, or in the case of Josh McDaniels, who I'm not saying that he's not a leader of men, but I just feel like there's a right way and there's obviously a wrong
I
way.
don't see
I
the
feel
wrong
like
way.
sometimes he's been too assertive, too aggressive, or whatever, and just has no clue how to connect with these guys, the players in that
Yeah,
locker room.
right.
So there is that fine line, there is that balance, I feel like, at the end of the day. And I feel like Ben Johnson right now currently is a little bit too much over here as like an introverted type of personality, very reserved. But I don't want him to go full throttle and too much in that regard. he's got to find that fine line,
That common ground. Yeah.
if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
I feel as long as he does, and he's kind of open and embracing the whole approach, being a first time head coach, should be no reason why he doesn't go down, go there to Chicago and kill it and just be the guy. Hopefully, that just is able to overcome a lot of
Fix
one
Caleb
and
Williams.
dones,
Fix him.
a
Fix
lot of
him.
guys that get
Yeah.
blown out, within their first couple years. Hopefully, he's able to be the exception and not more often than not the rule, with a lot of these guys. So, but I think as long as he does find that ability in him to take this role and basically run with it, just kind of like do what he has to do. Try not to do too much, whatever, but just find that balance.
Kiss,
I
right?
mean,
Kiss.
you
Yeah.
look at it. I mean, they need some pieces, but they're definitely trending in the right direction. Like Washington, like I'd like to think now with Rabel and company here in New England and Drake May, like the Patriots, I like to think that they're building something even before the hiring of Ben Johnson. Now he's going to be a big part of that moving forward. And definitely a key piece is Caleb Williams. Obviously, I feel like he wanted the ability to work with one of these hot shot up and coming young guys. If it wasn't Drake May, then now it's going to be Caleb. But Caleb too is a little bit of an interesting dude.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's not all skill on the field. I feel like there's a lot there lacking, immaturity at times, with being again a de facto leader as a quarterback. So I feel like the two of them, you can honestly say that they're gonna have to grow together. And if they can figure it out and just connect the dots, then watch out. That could be a nice special pairing, for a lot of years to come. And now it's just we'll see. But I will say it normally does happen quite soon in the process. So I feel like in the next year to two, we're gonna see like if he has the goods, early on. I think it's pretty noticeable, and if he doesn't, that's gonna show almost immediately, like we saw a year ago with Gerard Mayo and stuff like that here in New England. As
Yeah.
for our, as for Aaron Glenn, I think
Former
it's a little
player
bit of a
drafted by the Jets. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's a little bit of a different scenario because obviously he has plenty of skin in the game,
Oh
from a
yeah.
coaching
Oh yeah.
standpoint, and obviously his playing time, and not for
Yeah.
nothing, his playing time obviously came as a member of the Jets. So those roots there run very, very deep. He's very well respected. He doesn't have some of those same traits that I feel like, again, like I was just saying with Ben Johnson, that's going to have to overcome. He does strike me by the type, from the reporting and from what I see, as that leader of men, that alpha, whatever. So he probably already between the two has a little bit more of expectancy, in terms of that, moving on and being hired by the Jets and taking on that role
Yeah.
moving forward. I think he out of the two might have a little bit more of a easier and smoother path to um being able to succeed in his new location and be
Right
able to
away.
really
Yeah.
move mountains, go in there and really kind of like just, spearhead, that franchise that's been in utter disarray, for quite a while now, probably far too long, for Jets fans, and their liking.
How soon does he have to
you,
know
you
about
know
Aaron Rodgers? Is Aaron Rodgers coming or going?
I
That's the
think
biggest
Aaron
hurdle, right?
Rodgers definitely has to be decided on
Yeah.
relatively quickly,
Yeah, for
and
sure. For
and
sure.
and that and that's got to be probably his one of his, you know
Biggest elephant in the room, right? Yeah.
biggest
Yeah.
decisions, like
Yeah. Yeah.
just come like even before the draft or whatever, like, okay, let's sit down, let's talk, like where's your head, do you even want any part of it? Like I
Yeah.
expect that's every bit on his to-do list, like right out the gate, effective immediately. But yeah, I don't know, I really feel good, and I'm not a Jets fan. I will never be a Jets fan, but you got to feel optimistic and happy for them because and it looks like by their interview process, I mean, they started off with Rabel. I don't really know if Rabel really truly
Yeah.
wanted to go there, but it just told me as a fan from afar, again, um, being in the same division, obviously my team being the Patriots and stuff, it told me from afar, just based on their actions, that they were really taking this job seriously. I can't honestly say that about the Crafts because just like we saw with Mayo, I think more the same as just like it was geared for Rabel all along. And when you have kind of like that one sort of one track mind, that one locked in vision or whatever, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice right out the gate, like effective immediately. I feel like you're not really open, you're not really open for change and really picking the masterminds out there of these you know alleged interviews and stuff like that. And are you really like taking what they're telling you seriously? Are you really considering? Are you taking notes in these interviews or whatever? I don't know, but I can honestly say this: even though I can't stand them, the Jets, I feel like they went into it with a very solid and open mind, a legit game plan. Hey, we're gonna get one of these big fishes. We're gonna get one of these big dogs to just come in here and really just take this team slash organization by storm and spring us forward. And
Yeah.
that should have been their mindset. So I feel like them interviewing Rabel, obviously bringing in Aaron Glenn, closing the deal with him, they got their guy. And we already seen how well respected, how effective he's been there with Detroit core, even though they dealt with insane injuries coming down the stretch and into the playoffs. um you're not going to tell me that he didn't get the most out of them. And
Yeah.
that was a damn good, effective, and very skilled unit on that side of the ball. And I just feel like now, um, can he just take that next jump, that we're talking about as head coach? I get the I get a really, really good feeling about him. I think they really do have that guy now in house, that is gonna come in there, really apply himself. He's gonna, just push every button. He's gonna be a great coach. He's gonna be a leader of men. He's gonna be that alpha. He's gonna obviously, same thing as a new head coach, put pieces around him. But again, he has a lot of skin in the game, a lot of tenure in this league as a player and a coach. I can only imagine the outreach. I can only imagine the resources that he's had, the relationships that he's built up. So I like both hires a lot, and I actually was in favor of Ben Johnson over Mike Rabel here for New England. But I think of those two directly comparing, both coordinators coming over
One's a
from Detroit,
defensive guy, one's an offensive guy,
one's an
right? Yeah.
offensive
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
I think I feel a little bit more better, currently speaking, of Aaron Glenn than what I do Ben Johnson. But I think at the end of the day, in the very near future, I think both of those guys in their respective destinations, they're gonna
Will
be
succeed.
certainly well on their way to figuring it out
Yeah.
and being the right guy for both jobs for different reasons.
It's funny, Galen, because now if you're Detroit, you lost both your coordinators, right? Offense and defense, uh, defensive coordinators. I mean, has the window closed for the Detroit Lions? You see them getting back to where they were. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, we can get back there. Oh, we can get back to the title game. Oh, we can get back to the divisional round. Nothing's guaranteed. It's sort of like life, right? So we don't know how the 2025 Detroit Lions are going to look. I mean, will they make the playoffs? That's a tough division. You got the Packers, the Vikings, and now the Bears of Ben Johnson. He can most likely fix Caleb Williams, to be determined. But if you're the Lions, Galen, has the window closed with you losing both your coordinators? Can they get back to prominence? How will they look in this upcoming season?
It's tough to say because those are two those are
Yeah,
two huge, huge losses.
yeah,
There's no debating that.
right, right.
Um, and you'd like to think as a franchise, they probably saw the writing on the wall. They probably expected at least one, if not realistically, more and more as the rumors were out there. And obviously, they didn't try and like shut it down and just make it hard for these guys. Obviously, they gave him a ringing endorsement. They just, yep, the time is now, and they allowed these guys to you know pursue uh that obvious promotion elsewhere and stuff like that. So good for Detroit for not making it hard or awkward. When it came very apparent that you know their time very well could be now.
Yeah. Yeah.
They let these guys go out and just do what they felt in their heart of hearts was right and what they needed to do. But I will say, I I'd like to think that they have a plan. You know,
Yeah.
if worst case scenario ended up playing out by default for them as a franchise, as a team, um and that would be losing not just one but both offense and defensive
It's
coordinator.
it's crazy.
um
It's
two
crazy.
two of some of the two some of the
Best
two
minds,
two
two
of
of
some of
best
the best, yeah,
minds
two
in
of some of the
football.
best
Yeah.
minds slash coordinators I would
Yeah.
have to say in the whole league.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
mean, that's just how effective and high end they were on both sides of the ball. You see the reporting out there regarding both guys, nothing but, sunshine and rainbows and a lot of, credit being thrown their way for their wild success there in Detroit. My only head scratcher currently, it's been what, a few days for Ben Johnson. It's been almost that same time, a couple of days for
Aaron Glenn.
Aaron Glenn.
Yeah.
My only thing is and stop me if you're hearing differently, but I'm trying to look and see what I can dig up,
Hmm.
and it seems to be crickets since the hiring of these guys. I mean, there's been no like immediate aftermath sort of rumors, predictions, expectations, anything in
None.
terms of where they're thinking or where they could, possibly turn to next.
Yeah.
And you look up and down this roster, I mean, you're gonna want to find their replacement much sooner rather than later. You like to think that this whole process isn't going to be dragged on for too long. And if it is, why is that? Maybe they have their eyes, solely, focused on, you know, coordinators next in line that are, still obviously in this and still involved in the playoffs with championship weekend just a couple days away. So maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe they're just gonna gonna end up maybe deferring and looking to that next can't miss, like, genius that's really kind of like just making headways, on the college front. I mean, I don't know, but unless there's something standing in their way, which at this point, I mean, college is done, so it's not that. It's got to be, on either AFC or the NFC champion side of things, possibly. But it just seems like there's been next to no reporting. There's no
Nobody
rumors.
taking
There's
that job. Yeah.
there, there's no hints of what lies ahead, what could be next. But I will say this, I mean, they got to do something, and hopefully they knock it out of the park in their own right. Just for the simple fact, I like to think that Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, they set this team up, this franchise, with or without them moving forward. Detroit, especially with health on the men, getting ready for next season. You get a lot of your heavy hitters and your guys back on both sides of the ball, mainly defense. There's no reason why these guys can't be off and running next year. And I know Jared
Yeah.
Jared Goff
Jared
really
Goff.
dropped the
Yeah.
ball and really kind of turned into a pumpkin at the worst time possible. But I'd like to think that that was more of a fluke than just what we can
Who he is,
expect
the
because
sample size. Yeah.
because if that's the case, I mean, again, there was that consistency. There has been that steady growth for the most part. For the most part, down in Detroit, yes, a lot of that has been tied to Ben Johnson. But as a veteran quarterback in this league, with those targets that you have, I mean, come on. A guy like him should be able to finally just get over the hill and just get them at least to a Super Bowl, if not potentially there
Right.
and close it out and win it, you know. But I just feel that this roster is still in win now mode. And I think with the proper replacements of both Ben and Aaron on the respected side of the ball,
OC and
uh,
DC
I
coordinators. Yeah.
I just I like to think that there's got to be someone that they're just really set gun ho on, like, filling in the gaps in their absence and bringing on board and just continue to move forward because I just no. I mean, look at that roster, Kemford. This shouldn't be it. This shouldn't be it. I don't expect for this to be it. I still want and I hope that Detroit is able to just pick up the
Continue where they left
pieces
off.
and
Yeah.
just pick it right up,
Continue where they left off. Yeah.
next year,
Yeah.
and just like I said, there's health is always going to be an issue.
For
It's
sure.
hard to kind of just you know, not have injuries be apparent. But the next biggest thing is finding that next legitimate and worthy replacement
Right fit. Yeah.
and growing into their role. Maybe they're just ready to kind of hit the ground running. But whatever it is, I just know it just can't be left over from the scrap heap.
Yeah.
They deserve better offense and defense.
TBD.
But the
Yeah.
thing is, I'm just really surprised that we haven't heard anything. And maybe the reason why we haven't heard anything
Right.
is because maybe they're just trying to protect themselves from potential tampering or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe we start to hear something right after these games play out because now that there's that week off in between the Super Bowl and stuff like
Could be.
that,
Which I'm
I
not a
want to
fan of,
say,
Galen. I'm not a fan
you
of. I
know,
sent you that thing on Bill Belichick. He said also to being a fan
right.
of that interviewing coordinators while the playoffs are going on. I'm just not a fan of that. Kellen Moore was doing an interview with the Saints the day before the game last week. I'm like, I'm just not a fan of that. Just focus on the game, the task at hand. Once you lose, or if you lose, or if you go further, once the season is over, then you start interviewing. But I'm just not a fan of interviewing offensive coordinators during the season, during playoff games. I'm just not a fan of that.
Yeah, yeah, but the thing is, I mean, the day before that's one thing, but with the Super Bowl,
Yeah, we a
and
break in
again,
between, right?
we're only talk about with the if they're eyeing someone of the winning team, because
Yeah,
obviously the other team they're going home and they have all the time in the world, but when you have all that time, between the championship game and the Super Bowl, there's no need for it to be, a day or days before. You have
right.
legit like almost 2 weeks,
2 weeks. Yeah,
So just get them in, bring them in for an interview, get a good feel, and then pretty much if you want to look to continue and wait it out for the Super Bowl to play out. So much early on in the process in the bye week, yeah, I have no problem. Like, okay, the game Sunday, bring them in Monday, Tuesday. You still
yeah,
got the rest of that week and all of the next week, but you got to get them in like ASAP because for Detroit, you're going to want to figure it out. You don't want to continue to stall, whatever. And then to be fair to the winning team, whoever that, sort of uh, coordinator potentially to be. Obviously he's got bigger and better things in the short term to
without a
worry
doubt. Yeah,
about. So you got to be fair to them. You got to be fair to that team that's moving on. So, but I don't know. I mean, unless I'm missing it, but it just doesn't seem they have shown any sort of urgency whatsoever, and I don't get it. I mean,
Yeah.
this team, I expect to be there. Then they're not that far off. They're right there, but then they got two huge gaps, offense and defensive coordinator. They got to do something.
How surprised are you that the Cowboys can't hire a head coach right now at this point? Is this job even worthy taking? I mean, me personally, I wouldn't take this job. It's just a lot. Jerry's a lot, and the fan base deserves better. You're a Cowboy fan as well too. How surprised are you, real quick? I know you got to get out of here pretty soon. That the Cowboys don't have a head coach at this point in time.
It's pretty alarming, I would have to say. But again, you just look in the mirror as not me, but them as a franchise. Jerry as obviously the owner in charge, and forever now, and will continue. Like just have his hand in the cookie jar, calling the shots and stuff. It should be much more of an attraction than what it is. Let's face it. That roster is not bad. A few tweaks here and there, whatever. Yep, they have something. And then, of course, the draft, free agency, they're just not as bad as what they're perceived to be. Um, how things are playing out, currently right now, it would seem like just no. Why would anyone want to go there? Like there's nothing there, of attraction or whatever, but there really is though. Like okay, Dak, he's not a world beater, but certainly one of the better quarterbacks. They have certainly a top 2, 3, 4 wide receivers, CD Lamb, they have Micah Parsons. They have, a few pieces. Do they have all the pieces? No, not a lot of teams do.
But you know
But then
who's
there are some teams like there. Like again, I hate I hate continuing to bring this up, but my Patriots, they have a world of pieces, to start off with, as opposed to my bare bone Patriots. So it's just like, why is it? It should be more appealing. It should be more attractive.
Jerry
And
Jones.
again, just
Jerry
just
Jones.
like I said earlier, it just points right back at ownership, right
Yeah.
back at Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
My way or the highway. A lot of dictating. Where I'm not saying you have to give like the keys to the
the
kingdom
kingdom,
to
yeah.
everybody and anybody,
But step
but
back, please.
if there are some select worthy candidates of such treatment and handing that over, then why can't you look to do that? Why aren't you at all interested and open to just going against your norm of all these years and just entrusting that, and more so humbling, realizing your way hasn't worked. It it it
For 30 years now, yeah, it hasn't
yeah,
worked.
it used to work once upon a time, but
Yeah.
it hasn't worked since then in years, 30 or so years, I
Yeah.
guess. Like
30 years,
at this
95,
at
96,
this
yeah.
juncture, it's just like I, I don't even want to continue to count anymore. Like it's just another lost year after another lost year after lost year. It's just like enough. It's been far too long. And why is that? Like and they like legit struggle to get to the playoffs. And in those rare exceptions where they're able to get there, it's just like then it's the anti sort of commander
Yeah.
sort of talk or whatever.
Yeah, the commanders are for real now, so yeah.
There should be no like heads, kind of like, ho hum, like, slouching and hanging of the heads or anything like that. Kind of just like, oh my God, I can't believe they blew that game. No, because you weren't expected to be there. Cowboys, they get there. A lot of times there is some sort of expectation because they have the roster and enough pieces or whatever. But then can you do something when you get there? So in those rare exceptions, they get there, then they're one and done. It's just like, nope. Then they do get worthy blowback. They do get questioned. They do get like, just their unhappy fan base. They continue to be talked
Jerry,
about
Jerry,
in a
Jerry,
negative
Jerry.
light, and
Yeah.
and get that pushback from the media, like, up, prototypical Cowboys, another lost season, laughing stock, like, you name it, they
Year
get
in and
it.
year out.
So
Yeah.
so that's what I mean by like the anti-Commanders. Commanders still got, that grace period or whatever, because they're just arriving arguably a little bit too soon. But the Cowboys, they should be a playoff team. And then when they do get there, people want to see more. They should be being able to continue to just grow and get better each and every year. But some way, somehow, it's like they either don't get there or they get there and like they're not even
One
competitive.
and done. Yeah.
And it's just like, well, what was the point? You guys just ended up being a laughing stock, yet
Of the
again.
NFL. Yeah.
It like, yep, there's
Same
the
old
Cowboys.
recipe.
That,
Same old
this is
Cowboys.
what they are now known for.
Right.
Like,
Laughing stock of the
people
NFL.
can't take you seriously.
No.
So
No,
that's
you
what I'm
can't.
saying. And I don't think McCarthy is a bad coach. And I just feel like there's not really that conviction there. There's not direction. There's not that sense of urgency of taking care of him, because apparently that was like the falling off point, between him and the Cowboys going their separate ways and stuff. Couldn't agree to a long-term extension. But I don't know, if you're Jerry, like, how you gotta now like look at him. How bad does he want to win?
Yeah.
To me, I don't think he cares to win.
No.
Like,
He's a showman. What he is. He's a
moving
showman.
forward,
He's a
it's
showman.
just like
It's all a show.
he's almost just gotten way too comfortable in just mediocrity to below average performance. And I feel like until that in itself kind of like goes away for the better, and he shows some sort of like, hey, I'll do anything in my power, like, come on, let's sit down, let's figure this out. Like, let's get the Cowboys back to like prominency, like being like
Relevant again.
how everybody used to perceive us, America's team. Like, what can I do? Like, um give you resources, give you the power that you're looking for, the final say. Like, until he really kind of like, has a coming to Jesus moment, not to go on all religious or whatever,
Yeah.
but you get what I mean. Like, until he comes to the realization, just like, all right, like, let's go. The show's all yours. I just want to do what's right for me and my team and my fan base. I'm open to everything and anything. I think it's then and only then that the Cowboys will start to finally figure it out, do what they need to do, building this franchise, maybe start investing into this team, bringing in people, maybe like, for example, like of the pedigree, the mindset of like a Rabel, that's like a no nonsense guy through and through.
Mhm.
And that so much shouldn't just start and end with players. That would mean, Jerry, nope, hey, fall back, I got this, or whatever. You know, you entrusted me. I'm not going to disappoint, or whatever, but you need to give me more than what you've been giving all these years to, all the many candidates before me and the coaches before me.
Yeah.
But unless that day comes, um, Jerry, I'm sorry, but you're not a one-stop shop. You can't do it all. I mean, you swear he's a coach.
He might as
you
well
know,
coach at this point, right?
from the owner's box.
Yeah.
And
It's
no,
unbelievable.
you're not a coach. You know what I'm
Unbelievable.
saying? And you shouldn't even be, having all the say that you've had for as long as you've had. Like, as what? Like he's the Cowboys de facto GM. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I mean. Like,
Terrible.
people used to say,
Terrible.
like,
Terrible.
towards the
Terrible.
end with Bill Belichick, that he's like spreading himself thin. Well, from an ownership standpoint, Jerry, all these years, for like the last 20, 25, 30 years, has been wearing himself super thin. Like,
Correct.
he's here, there, everywhere, like, just he's the one that's like, in the media and stuff like that, conducting interviews, going on radio shows and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's just
He's the
it's
guy.
just too much.
Yeah.
Fall back.
Yeah. It's
Like,
okay.
and I feel like he's the only owner that we always stay hearing from and seeing.
Yeah.
That's not normal.
No.
Am I wrong?
Yeah.
And
Maybe,
and that's what I feel like ultimately what is really doing in the Cowboys. You
It's
know what I mean?
borderline
It's
crazy.
gotta be.
You
It's
do-
gotta be.
if you do the same thing each year, season after season, and expect different results, I mean, you're borderline at this point crazy. So, Cowboys no head coach, Saints no head coach, Jacksonville Jaguars no head coach. We'll see how that pans out. CC to the Hall of Fame, Ichiro to the Hall of Fame. We'll talk about that on a possible next podcast. Galen, can we talk about Bills Ravens on the next podcast? And then you got to get out of here. And also Chiefs and Bills, how that's going to pan out. Hopefully before kickoff on Sunday, we figure out a time and try to come on the show. I know every day is the Super Bowl. You're in a little bit of pain today, but the nation thanks you for being on here. Playing hurt, by the way, guys. He's playing hurt today.
I
Not
appreciate it.
100%.
I tried.
But every day is the Super Bowl for us, as we would
Well,
say, as my
today's
idol
Friday.
Dan
I
Patrick
mean,
would say, every day is
depend
the Super Bowl.
depending on your schedule. I mean,
We'll
I
figure
don't
something out.
see
No,
I
we'll
don't
figure
see
something
why
out.
any time between tomorrow Sunday. But
Yeah.
you got to get after it before these two games,
Yeah.
so we
let's-
can give them their proper due. And I apologize for having to bail a little
all
earlier
good.
than
All good, my
usual.
man. Take care of
I
yourself.
tried. Hopefully you guys enjoyed.
For sure. Have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kenford. He's Galen. We'll see you guys soon. Fly, Eagles, fly. Go, Birds, come Sunday. He's doing the fly.
Let's go.
Way to end the show. Way to end the show. Way to end the show. Appreciate it,
Yes,
guys.
sir.
We'll see you guys soon. Thanks for joining us.